Well, today we are talking to an amazing agent who lives in the state of Maine, and I wanted to ask you this, my friend. Did you know that Maine is the pine tree state? I'm assuming you do.
Oh, we're definitely the pine tree state, and we have more trees than people here in Maine. Fun fact.
That is a great fact. When I was looking up Maine, I'm like, I did not know they were the pine tree state. But today I want to introduce you to my friend Shauna. Hey, Shauna, how are you?
I'm doing great. How
Awesome.
are you?
Well, I'm good. They also, of course, I know Maine also is known for lobster, all their lobster. And
Yep.
um, you guys do a lot of stuff with blueberries. What's up with that?
We do. Yeah, Maine has a pretty big blueberry industry for sure. And also we're also known for fishing and lobster and also a lot of farming. We have a lot of farming communities in Maine.
I love Maine. It seems like a fairy tale living up there, but you're going to tell us the real scoop. So tell us, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself and then kind of your real estate journey, if you will.
Yeah, so I'm Shauna Larrabee, and I'm an associate broker with the Maine Real Estate Experience, and I got my start in real estate in 2019. I originally started out my professional life in the insurance industry, so I worked for a company called Unum. They used to be headquartered out of Portland, but now they're down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I transitioned to real estate in 2019, and I've worked on many sides of the industry. So I started out as an office manager. And then I became a transaction coordinator, and then I became a director of operations for a real estate team, and eventually I settled into a solo sales agent role, which I love. I was with Keller Williams for many years, and then switched to a smaller boutique brokerage here in Maine. But I love it. My favorite thing about working in real estate is the people, and I think that helping people through some of the biggest transitions of their lives, sort of while they close one chapter or start another one. And I really view it as my job to make it easy for them.
I love hearing people say it's about helping people because sometimes I
Hmm.
think people forget that the reason we are in this very difficult, very hard industry is because we actually like helping people. And there's probably not a
Hmm.
lot of other reasons we're in it because it is a very difficult career path. So I love hearing
Yeah.
that. And, you know, I love hearing your background, and that's really cool that you have this insurance background because, of course,
Hmm.
as we know, insurance has kind of been in the headlines with buying a home and some of those challenges the past few years. But can you tell us? So you're in Maine. What areas of Maine do you cover? It's like, do you cover the whole state? The state is huge.
So it's a pretty big state. I specialize in the southern half of the state, but I am able to serve the entire state of Maine. And if it's not something that I'm an expert in, I have a huge network here and I could connect you with somebody that is. So I'm located actually out of Cumberland Center, which is about 20 minutes north of Portland. It's a really cute little town. It has a really nice like rural feel to it. We have the Cumberland Fair that happens right here in Cumberland, which is a pretty popular destination in the fall. And actually, you can see my ribbons in the background. So this year, my kids and I grew some vegetables and submitted them to the fair, and we won some ribbons. So that was pretty cool. And then I'm trying to think. So I'm in the southern half of the state. So Maine is kind of an interesting place. You have the southern half of the state, which is definitely more city-like, and then you go up into the northern parts and it's extremely rural. Like I said, there's more trees than people. So it definitely has that dynamic going on.
Yeah, so Southern Maine. So you are not too far from, Massachusetts and those type of
Mhm.
things. Probably how far are you to the border?
So I'm probably hour and 15 minutes to the border of Maine and a few hours from Boston, and which is nice.
Okay.
And I think it makes Maine a very popular destination for people from New York and Massachusetts because we're just so close and we're definitely a much more rural place. And we have a lot of like outdoorsy opportunities for people here. So you can go to the beach. We have a beautiful rocky coastline. The water is pretty cold though, I will tell you that. We also do a lot of like hiking, biking, skiing, snowmobiling. I mean, pretty much any kind of outdoor activity that people want to do, they can get in Maine.
I love that. So I've been to Portland, Maine, and I loved it. I love lighthouses. I love just the idea of that kind of rocky shore. The
Hmm.
food was really good. The food was very good.
Yep.
Like I said, you guys do a lot of blueberry stuff. You got some syrups going on. I think, I don't know if that's Vermont also, but Maine too, I
Vermont has a
feel.
lot of the syrup game going on. Yep. We
Okay,
also do
okay.
potatoes up here too.
Oh, okay,
Not
okay.
Idaho
But
level, but we do potatoes.
okay, hey, I always think of Idaho, but hey, you got to think of Maine too.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, Southern Maine is really awesome. So, you talked about some of the different activities in your area,
Hmm.
and I imagine some of the industries that bring people to where you are, you kind of mentioned some of them. So maybe fishing industry, that kind of
Yeah.
industry. Are there others
Yep.
that come to your area?
So yeah, so some of the top companies in Maine, if I were to talk about some of the companies, so LL Bean is probably the most iconic company. When people think of the state of Maine, they think of LL Bean because of sort of like their rugged outdoor fashion, the bean boots, but also kind of the lifestyle that comes with that, very outdoorsy company. They're probably one of our biggest employers in Maine. We also have a company called Bath Iron Works or BIW. And then they do like a lot of shipyard and like shipbuilding. So a lot of the maritime industry, sort of an industrial company. And then we also have WEX, who is a finance company, and they do a lot of like credit card services, I believe, for companies. And then IDEX. IDEX brings a lot of professionals to the area. They're headquartered out of Westbrook, which is about a half hour from me, and they do a lot of like I want to say biosciences, like veterinary, like testing for veterinarians, and water testing as well.
That's actually cool. You have a variety of industries because right
Hmm.
off the bat, without me knowing, I'm thinking outdoor industries, logging, and like you said,
Yep.
fishing industries. It's funny you said WEX. We have our HSA card is from there,
Yeah.
our HSA credit card, or whatever it's called. So that's interesting. Well, then thinking about all those industries that are in your area, are people moving to your area for those career paths, or who's moving to Southern Maine and even Maine?
So we saw an explosion of real estate during the pandemic in Maine, and it's
Mm.
because we had a lot of professionals down in New York and Boston who could suddenly work from home. And they realized like they could live in a rural place and have all of this outdoor culture and activities nearby and still have their city job. And so a lot of people came to Maine because of that dynamic, and they're still coming to Maine because of that. Yeah, so I would say that's a big reason why people move to Maine.
Well, and so are they coming to Maine and buying second homes? Is this going to be their primary home?
Yep, so we do have a lot of people who are buying their second home. They have their primary home down in Massachusetts or New York, and then they'll come up here to buy a second property. I heard a statistic once, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but 1/4 of the homes in Maine sit empty for a good chunk of the year because so many of them are second homes or vacation homes.
Wow, wow,
Yeah, yeah,
that's very impressive. So you have
mhm,
a lot of secondary homes that people are buying.
yeah.
So, I mean, what about investors? Are investors coming from
Yes.
other areas?
Yep, so we get a lot of investors who want to start like an Airbnb business up here. They'll want to be down like maybe in the Old Orchard Beach area or along the coastline. I know Acadia National Park up towards like mid-Maine in the northern part of the state. There's a lot of people that run those kind of businesses up there. I actually just talked to an investor the other day because we're still in a little bit of a housing shortage here in Maine.
Mhm.
I just talked to an investor the other day who's looking for land to build more single family homes for people. So yeah, we have a good mix of investors for sure.
Well, that's a good topic. So you guys are in a housing shortage, and Maine does have so much land. Now, I know
Mhm.
a lot of it's covered in those pine trees, probably, but and farming and stuff. But in your area, say Southern Maine, do you see a lot of new construction? I'm wondering because here in Indianapolis, we have so much new construction because, we
Mm.
have farmland and lots of land.
Yeah, so we are seeing more apartment buildings being constructed in Maine. So in the cities, I know like down in Scarborough, that's been a big spot for development. South Portland is kind of a hub because we have like the mall there. We have Costco that just came in,
Mm,
and a lot of the big retail presences there. And so we are seeing, a lot of like multi-family properties and apartment buildings and things like that being constructed.
okay, so they are building. What about single family homes? It seems like there's
Yeah.
such a need for that.
Yeah, there is, and there's definitely a need for that here in Maine. And I think that the key word too is affordable. So things that people can afford because prices have increased so much in Maine since the pandemic that we have a little bit of an affordability crisis going on, especially for people who are native Mainers. They haven't moved from out of state. They're not working at an out of state job. They're locals, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's tough, you know, with the economy. So, just a rough idea, in your area specifically, what would you say for a single family home would be a median price? Just,
So it widely varies depending on what part of Maine you're talking about. So again, I'm in the southern part of the state. Down where I live around Cumberland Center, I would say in Cumberland County, maybe you would need at least $650,000 to get an average house down here. And that's a big shift from pre-pandemic.
Okay, okay, so that is an
Yeah.
increase because that,
Yeah.
I will say, and we all know this. I mean, I shouldn't have acted shocked, but the Northeast is historically more expensive. Um, in Indianapolis, our median
Mhm.
price, and right now we're in the end of November 2025. Our median price is 256.
Yeah. And that's
That's
different.
quite, yeah.
And I would say in the rural parts of Maine, so if you go up more north towards like Augusta, Bangor, it's a lot less. So I would say 300,000 would be your minimum, sort of north of that for an average house. So it's less. And then when you get up to the extreme north of Maine, that's much more rural, prices tend to be a bit cheaper. So just because, there's not a lot of cities nearby. So,
Well, there's not a lot of cities. Also, that's a hard way of life. I'm sorry. I think maybe in the summer that's fine, but like imagine the snowfall levels they're getting, and like that seems that's not easy probably living up there. Agree or no?
I guess it depends. I mean, I think one of the keys to living in a cold state is having hobbies in the winter, like
Mm,
enjoying the outside in the winter. Like I said, we have a lot of folks that come up here that are avid skiers. So they'll
mm.
go up to Sugarloaf or Sunday River and, they spend their winter on skis or they will go snowmobiling. We have a lot of trails in Maine that people enjoy in the winter. Ice fishing is another big one. So like having outdoor hobbies, I think, is one of the keys to really making it up here in the wintertime.
Well, then that actually, if homes are that cheap, and for Maine that is cheap in the two and
hmm
three hundreds, then
Yeah,
that leaves a lot of opportunities open for people who are looking, maybe that can't get into Southern Maine, if they do
yep,
want a second home or they love
yep.
the outdoors up there, to invest in some of those properties. For me, it's just like, whew, I can't even imagine the amount of snowfall. And it's just, we live in Indianapolis, so of course it snows, and of course it snows where you are, but
Mhm.
I'm sure and positive we don't get the amounts that Northern Maine gets.
I don't think you do, and I've been to Indiana before. So, Shipshawana, I spent a little bit of time in Shipshawana, Indiana, and you guys have like a flea market out there, and I thought that was the coolest thing. But I do think you guys have an easier winter than us for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? The past few years, it's barely snowed, and that's like fine by me. But, of course,
I
people who
can't say
follow the
that.
farmer, oh, people who follow the Farmer's Almanac have stated or claimed that this year is going to be a rough winter. So, anything goes. We
Mhm.
don't know. Um, my hobbies when it comes to snow are eating and, hanging out inside. Okay. I mean, it is what it is. Okay. We've already started hibernating here, so
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely been cold here already. Like I said, we've been maybe 30, 40 degrees here in Maine already, so is
Hey,
what it is. But we have beautiful summers. I mean, they tend to be short-lived. We have about 3 to 4 months of great weather, and then we fall into colder temps. So we love our
yes.
summers up here, and we try to enjoy every moment.
But a big draw to Maine, just like New England, all of New England is fall, right? And I
Yeah.
absolutely love New England in the fall. And I'm sure, how many tourists does that bring to your area?
Maine is actually known as vacation land, so we get a huge influx of tourists for the summer, and then it tends to die off after Labor Day. But we do get people who come here to be, and we call them leaf peepers. They'll come to see the foliage. We didn't really have great foliage this year. We had a little bit of a drought going on late summer, early fall,
Yeah.
and I think that might have impacted it. But typically, like the fall in Maine and Vermont and New Hampshire is just so gorgeous. And, with that comes the fall fair. So I talked about the Cumberland Fair earlier and, maple syrup. And there's a lot of farm stands in Maine too, tons of roadside stands. So you can stop and get, a cider donut and a pumpkin and all that stuff. And it's a great experience. I definitely recommend coming to New England in the fall.
Now you're speaking my language when you start talking about this donut, that
Cider
fair, this
donut. Yeah.
fried food. My dream. Indiana is funny. You've been to Shipshewana, that's Amish country. That's about 2 hours north of Indianapolis.
Yep.
And we have a lot of fairs. We have the same type of fall foliage, but it's just not in New England, so it's not quite as fun, if you will. But um, from talking to you, Maine seems like the perfect place where, someone can come if they're looking for a second home, if they want to enjoy like a peaceful life, if they
Yep.
are looking for an investment property. So, if anyone watching this is looking for those type of opportunities or even just an opportunity to move somewhere new, Shauna is the expert in the area. She can also recommend you to other agents in northern parts of Maine. But Shauna,
Mhm.
I just appreciate you so much. And I just am so thankful I got to talk with you.
Jennifer, thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye bye.